Hello, and thank you for joining us. It is about the survivors now, particularly children under the age of 5. More than anyone else who has survived the enormous devastation after the cyclone, young children need water and shelter because they are much more susceptible to disease. And yet, 3 days after the cyclone smashed into this poor and frightened nation, the military regime is still trying to control the world's desire to help. With each day of delay, the number of dead is soaring. At least 22,500 people are now known dead. That is twice as many as yesterday. Another 41,000 are missing. That is 8 times yesterday's count. Images from inside the country are still restricted as well. So from space, this was the impact zone 4 years ago. Now watch the southern tip. Another NASA photo taken after the storm shows where entire towns are virtually washed away. Here's Paul Johnson.
In Myanmar's devastated coastal delta, the clock is ticking for the lives of countless thousands who survived the cyclone but may not survive its aftermath.
There is no water in Yangon city, so the storm destroyed.
At least 1 million people have now been left homeless after entire villages in the low-lying Irrawaddy River Delta were completely wiped out. Already poor, the 6 million people in this region now face water shortages, disease, and the collapse of their food supply after rice paddies, roads, and infrastructure were washed away in the storm surge. Everywhere you look, Myanmar's former rice bowl has been turned into a wasteland of downed trees and ruined homes.
The scope of the disaster is huge, and we are very concerned. We are alarmed with the high death toll increasing every hour.
While at least $15 million in financial aid has been promised by the international community, including $2 million from Canada. Incredibly, the UN and other agencies say some of their workers are still waiting for visas to get into the country. The U.S. Navy has an amphibious assault ship off the coast of Thailand that can make fresh water and deliver first aid and supplies with its helicopters. But the Americans say Myanmar has not, as of yet, accepted their offer.
We're prepared to move U.S. Navy assets to help find those who've lost their lives, to help find the missing, and to help stabilize the situation.
Ironically, one of the first warnings of this killer storm came from the U.S. Navy, a warning the Americans say may not have been passed on to people in the countryside. As a massive humanitarian crisis unfolds, the world will watch Myanmar's military rulers closely to see what comes first, survival of their people or survival of their regime.
Myanmar's rulers are also being criticized for insisting the country go ahead and hold a constitutional referendum vote that was scheduled for this weekend. Well, they say they might postpone it in some of those hard-hit areas. They say for the rest of the country, they expect this vote to be held on schedule. Kevin?
All right, Paul, thanks very much. World Vision Canada is one of the Canadian aid agencies with offices in Myanmar, and Dave Toyson is the president. He is with us now from Toronto. Dave, obviously the need is enormous. Is the regime communicating with agencies such as yours yet?
Yes, we've had regular meetings with the Ministry of Social Services there. There's certainly a willingness on the part of the government to encourage us to be responding. That happened right from the beginning because we've been working in the country for quite a number of years.
So what have they asked you for at this point?
Well, basically they've asked for things like zinc sheeting for roofing, tents, medicine, food, and of course clean water, which is probably the most critical thing at the moment.
All right, obviously not a lot of time here. 1 million homeless. People will move to where the food and the shelter is eventually. What's the window here before we might have a humanitarian crisis of a regional nature as people press against borders looking for food?
Oh, I think things could worsen quite quickly over the next number of days, especially with the lack of clean water. There's also potential of more flooding now, a second flooding that's coming as a result of the weather. And then you've got people on the Delta particularly that are just very, very simple construction, bamboo. They're very exposed to the elements.
All right, Mr. Toyson, good luck with your work, and thanks for joining us.